Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing the team that helps me become one of the first to reach Legend rank in Season 14 of Go Battle League. The team consists of a Dialga on the lead, Therian Landorus as the safe switch, typically to try and bait out the opponent's Giratina or the opponent's Kyogre, and then my brand new build, my lucky shiny Ho-Oh in the back. And Ho-Oh is just an absolutely devastating closer, an investment that proved very worthwhile as it was key to helping me hit Legend. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out my Legend run for Season 14. Hopping to the first match, picking up a very tough lead Dialga into Groudon. Groudon does win all even shields here. I'm going to stay in, farm up some energy, switch and catch what I'm hoping is a Precipice Blades onto the Therian Landorus. Opponent did bait with a Fire Punch. Now they're going to send in Reshiram. Reshiram definitely not the most comfortable Pokemon for my Ho-Oh to see in the endgame, so I'm definitely not too upset about baiting this out. Stone Edge is going to be able to force a shield, and if the opponent looks to farm down, which they do, I will make it to a Superpower. Superpower not going to KO here, so my opponent doesn't have to shield, but this puts it in a range where I can one shield farm down with Dialga and continue to gain energy on my Dialga here. In comes Dialga. I will be shielding up here in case they are running Overheat or Draco Meteor. It is just a Fusion Flare. Reshiram does not make it to another move. Opponent, odds are they're going to be sending back in the Groudon, but I now have a massive energy lead. I'm farming up. I am not baiting, going straight for the Draco, guaranteeing the knockout or the final shield. We get the shield, aggressive switch into Ho-Oh, and they're going to fire off the Precipice Blades. This is single resisted. It still does quite a bit of damage. In the back, they have Dialga, and this is where Ho-Oh can absolutely dominate as a closer. In the 1-0 shield, Ho-Oh goes for the Sacred Fire. Big damage onto the Dialga, and with the shield, I can shield once, farm down, and leave with a move to KO the Groudon. Ho-Oh gets the farm down, and the opponent concedes the match. We see same leads in the next match, Dialga into Groudon. Same game plan as before. I'm going to farm up and then switch after their 7th Mudshot to try and catch a Precipice Blades. Opponent shows great patience, not throwing the move. They're going to bank energy and send in Mewtwo. I'm going to be firing off the Stone Edge here. Stone Edge definitely going to hurt Mewtwo. Continuing to farm up a ton of energy here. Farming up with the Landorus. Landorus not quite able to make it to the Stone Edge. They go for Psy Strike number 1 and Psy Strike number 2. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to force a shield here. However, I'm going to send in Dialga and look for the farm down. Dialga just cannot get the farm down. Mewtwo, with 1 HP remaining, makes it to the Psy Strike and forces a shield. In comes Groudon. I have enough for the Draco here, so I'm able to grab a shield with an Iron Head. I'm going to call a Fire Punch. Odds are my opponent is not going to be baiting. They do go for the Precipice Blades. In comes Ho-Oh, and they have Dialga in the back. Let's go. Ho-Oh with a shield advantage, as I mentioned, is just so deadly. Sacred Fire gets the shield and gets the attack drop as well. That is even better. I'm going to be committing the shield at this point. All they have to do is just go straight Iron Head, but they're not going to be able to make it to another Iron Head as Ho-Oh makes it to the Sacred Fire. But the Groudon still has a ton of energy. I am not out of the woods yet. This is going to come down to a shield call. Are they baiting or are they nuking? I call the bait. It's the Fire Punch, and that's going to be game over as Ho-Oh makes it to the Brave Bird. Brave Bird is going to be taking care of the Groudon, and that is a good game. We've got mirror leads in the next match, Dialga versus Dialga. I have 2 better answers in the back, so I'm going to save switch into my Landorus. My opponent is not switching out here. They are farming up a ton of energy. I'm expecting them to try and catch a Superpower, so I'm just going to keep farming and wait for them to swap. They are going to switch into their own Landorus, so it looks like the opponent so far is running a mirror team. They're going to commit the shield on the Stone Edge here. I'm farming up with my Landorus, and I'm going to be firing off another Stone Edge. This Stone Edge is going to land, getting my opponent low. I continue to farm, go for Superpower, and Superpower is not going to KO, but it's going to get them very low here. Superpower gets them low. It was a CMP tie, and at this point, I'm just going to let this through. They go for the Stone Edge. They can make a Superpower, but they cannot make a Stone Edge. So I'm going to send in Ho-Oh to get an energy lead here. Ho-Oh will be hit with the resisted Superpower. We'll have to see. Are they going to send in the Dialga? Yes, they are. I'm farming up here with the Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh goes for the Sacred Fire, but my opponent makes an incredible catch, catching the Sacred Fire onto their own Ho-Oh. So my opponent is actually running a mirror team here. I'm going to farm up, go for the Brave Bird. My opponent is going to go for the extra here. Brave Bird is going to get the shield. I do get the Incinerate through. My opponent is going to be firing off a Sacred Fire. I commit the shield. I'm now going to send in Dialga. I'm very close to a move on my Ho-Oh, but I don't have one yet. They're going to fire off a Sacred Fire. Sacred Fire is going to land. I do get the attack drop, which is unfortunate. I'm not able to get the farm down. My opponent is going to be able to fire off a move. This is going to KO. I'm going to send in my own Ho-Oh. I need this Brave Bird to KO the Dialga. This is going to be close. Brave Bird barely does not KO. Dialga hangs on with a sliver of HP. Ironhead KOs. And that's game over. Picking up our first positive lead of the video, leading Dialga into Dragonite. Dragonite, of course, is able to outpace in this matchup and make it to the superpower, but I fully intend on shielding. They're going to have to switch out because they're going to be debuffing themselves, and then I'll have to see what they bring in. They send in an Excadrill, and I have the perfect counter available in Therian Landorus. Therian Landorus dominates Exca in this matchup, as I can tank double Rock Slide here, and after the second one lands, I'm still not in a range where they can fast move farm me down. They're going for Rock Slide number 2. I'm going to let that go. I'm on very low HP, but Mud Shot not going to be able to farm down the Landorus. Superpower is going to be no shielded. Opponent sends back in the Dragonite, but this way they get minimal farm on the Dragonite, and they have to shield the debuff Stone Edge. They're going to get the farm down with the Dragonite. I'm going to send in Dialga. I'm going straight for the Iron Head. I just want to get rid of the Dragonite. Down goes Dragonite. What do they have in the back? It's a Metagross. In comes Ho-Oh, and the opponent concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, leading Dialga into Ho-Oh. I'm going to be save switching out of this lead into Landorus to check for any Giratina or Kyogre in the back. I'm farming up, going for the Stone Edge, but my opponent makes a perfect catch, catching the Stone Edge onto Zacian. The bad news for my opponent, however, is they've just given my Landorus a massive energy lead, and Landorus up energy is incredibly scary. Stone Edge is going to force the shield. My opponent is going to be firing off a charge move. I'm going to let this through. They have to play rough, or it's not going to be enough to KO. They close combat. I tank it, and I'm firing off the superpower. This is resisted, but since they lowered their defense, superpower is actually able to KO. Back in comes my opponent's Ho-Oh. They leave with 100 energy. I'm going to send in my own Ho-Oh, and I'm going to tank whatever they throw here. My opponent does not go for the Sacred Fire. They go for the Brave Bird. That does a lot of damage. They're going for Brave Bird number 2. I'm going to be committing a shield here as they go for the second Brave Bird. In the back, they have Dragonite, and I'm firing off a Brave Bird of my own. This will not KO, but it will hit for a lot of damage, and I'm going to send in Dialga. Dragonite makes it to a Dragon Claw, but this is not enough for a superpower here. I can let this through, just gonna be the Dragon Claw, and I get the farm down. Opponent is gonna send back in their own Ho-Oh. I'm gonna build up to the Draco Meteor and bait with an Iron Head. I'm baiting, so that way they're not going to be able to farm me down. They're forced to commit the shield. They're gonna have to fire off energy here, and at this point, as long as I save my shield for my own Ho-Oh, this game is won. I can send in my own Ho-Oh, make it to the Brave Bird. I do lose CMP, but the good news is I saved the shield from earlier, so I can shield up their Brave Bird. They have no shields remaining, which means my Brave Bird is going to get the knockout, and we are now 3-0, needing one more win for Legend. We've got same leads in the next match, Dialga into Ho-Oh. Same game plan as before, I'm going to save switch into my Landorus. Ho-Oh staying in here, farming up to 80 energy, and I'm firing off the Stone Edge. This Stone Edge is going to one-shot, so my opponent is forced to burn a shield. I continue to farm. They're going to be firing off the Sacred Fire here. I will commit the shield. I'm hoping they don't debuff me, and they do not. My opponent is going to send in Lugia. I'm firing off the Stone Edge. Stone Edge is going to hit for super effective damage. Lugia able to tank it. I farm up, go for the Stone Edge, and win CMP as Lugia makes it to the Sky Attack. Stone Edge isn't quite going to be able to KO. I'm going to let this Sky Attack through. Sky Attack will KO, but now I can send in Ho-Oh and get an energy lead. So now I have a 1 Incinerate head start, and I'm basically at full health. We'll have to see, is my opponent going to send in their own Ho-Oh? Yes, they will. I'm farming up here, firing off the Sacred Fire, and I lose CMP. My opponent is rocking the best buddy Ho-Oh. They go for the Sacred Fire, and they do debuff me. That's a bit unfortunate here, as now this Sacred Fire is not not going to be doing as much damage. I continue to farm up with my own Ho-Oh, going for the Brave Bird, and my opponent goes for the extra here. This Brave Bird is going to get the shield. I continue to farm up. My opponent now sends in Yveltal, and I'm going for another Brave Bird here. This Brave Bird is definitely going to hurt. Brave Bird gets Yveltal low. In comes Dialga, and Dialga, if I can farm down and leave with a Draco, I can win this game. I have to respect the Focus Blast. It's only a Dark Pulse bait. They cannot make it to the blast. This is only going to be a Dark Pulse, but the bad news is this puts me into Sacred Fire range, and I don't have the Draco loaded. I only have an Iron Head. I fire off the Iron Head. It is not enough to KO. Ho-Oh lost CMP, but they're about to win the game as Sacred Fire KOs. In comes my own Ho-Oh. They make it to the Brave Bird. Brave Bird KOs my Ho-Oh, and I need to win this next game for Legend. Moving into the next match now in a must-win game, leading into, you guessed it, another Ho-Oh lead. As always, immediate save switch into Landorus. Ho-Oh staying in this matchup, so I'm going to fire off the Stone Edge here. Stone Edge is, of course, going to be pressuring a shield, but my opponent can get that shield right back with a Sacred Fire. Sacred Fire will get shielded. Opponent does not get the debuff. That is quite nice. I'm farming up, and I'm going for another Stone Edge. If they're going to stay in here, I am definitely going to make them give up shields to do so. Landorus continuing to farm. I will respect it with a shield. My opponent fires off the Brave Bird. They're going to be looking to switch, and they do. They're going to send in Groudon. I'm going to bank a Stone Edge for later, and now I'm going to send in my Ho-Oh. This way, I have a Stone Edge, so if they bring back in the Ho-Oh later, I can hopefully snipe them mid-Incinerate. I'm farming up with Ho-Oh, but I end up losing CMP to Groudon. Groudon going for another Precipice Blades. Precipice Blades does a lot of resisted damage. That is an incredibly powerful move. I go for the undercharged Sacred Fire, looking for the farm down, but with a sliver of HP, they make it to the Fire Punch. That Fire Punch is going to KO the Ho-Oh. I'm going to fully wait my clock, and I'm going to send in Dialga. I know their Ho-Oh does not have a Sacred Fire loaded, so if they send it in, which they do, I can snipe with the Landorus. Back in comes the Landorus. We banked a Stone Edge. One-shots the Ho-Oh. They have their own Dialga in the back, and since I overfarmed with the Landorus, we make it to the superpower. Massive damage onto the Dialga. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. And that win secures me a 4-1 set, which from 2970 ELO after claiming is going to be enough to get me to Legend rank at 3011 ELO. And some of you may be wondering, what does the pose look like? Well, we have one additional battle where we can see the pose there as well. Hopping into the final match, picking up a Nightmare lead Dialga into Melmetal. I'm going to farm up until they reach the back-to-back superpowers and look for a catch onto Landorus. I go for the catch, but my opponent shows great restraint, holding onto their energy, and now they're going to be able to launch multiple Rock Slides at the Landorus. Landorus can tank 2 Rock Slides, but Rock Slide number 3 is going to be enough to pressure a shield. Here, I'm anticipating a switch out, so I try and wait a turn looking for the Thunder Shock to go for the superpower, but they end up going for the Rock Slide immediately, so I don't get a Mud Shot through. At long last, we finally do see the opponent switching out, and they're going to send in Zacian, but I just have so much energy on Landorus. I'm able to outpace the Snarl Zacian, make it to another Stone Edge, and this is going to be getting my shield back. Zacian continuing to farm up, and you know what? I'm just going for the superpower here. This is non-lethal, but it will deal some nice damage, and since I'm not anticipating that they're going to be running Wild Charge, I'm actually going to send in Ho-Oh to absorb this damage. My opponent is not running Wild Charge, and the gamble pays off. Ho-Oh tanks the play rough, gets the farm down. Opponent going to send in Melmetal. I'm farming up with Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh, unfortunately, is going to get outpaced here. They can make it to 2 Rock Slides before I make it to 2 moves with Ho-Oh. I'm going to be firing off the Sacred Fire here. Sacred Fire gets no shielded. Opponent saving their shield for Yveltal in the back. And I'm just going for the Sacred Fire as soon as I get it. I need to get this damage. Opponent lets it through. They get their attack dropped. And they concede the match. All in all, I do believe that this team is absolutely incredible if you're looking to make a climb up the ranks, maybe even to Legend rank during this Master League rotation. Ho-Oh as a closer, especially if you can get it an energy lead or a shield advantage, absolute devastation upon opponents. Ho-Oh Incinerate is a bit clunky of a fast move to use since it is a 5-turn, but Sacred Fire and Brave Bird are insanely strong moves, and there's not really much of anything in the meta that feels very comfortable going up against a Ho-Oh that has either the energy lead or the shield advantage. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.